Well, Father Stewart, I have to tell you, this is a thrill for me that you're here because in a way it's a day I looked forward to for many years. But let me begin with an observation that I think all of us share here at St. Lucie High. You're a joyful guy.
Thanks.
The theme of the year is joy. What are you feeding on to remain kind of joyful and pleasant to deal with every day?
So I go back to Paul's letter to the Galatians, where he talks about the fruits of the Spirit. And love, joy, peace. Joy being the second fruit of the Holy Spirit. I'd love to say, and maybe it's true, that it's not my joy, but a joy that I think God is for the world, and a joy that I'm been given the grace to plug into in some way.
Well, thanks for sharing a little bit something about that.
Yeah.
Certainly you're not a person for whom grief and sadness magically go away.
Sure, of course.
So when you move through grief and sadness, or you're thinking about the world, what do you do with that, and how does that somehow not disconnect you from that joy?
Ignatian spirituality is one of intense engagement with the real world.
Yeah.
And flight from the real world is deeply anti-Ignatian, I would say. And so we have to be in the midst of it, that in connecting with somebody who has experienced loss or grief, throughout my Jesuit formation, working with people who are mourning the loss of a loved one, or sitting with someone who's dying, that's real. And in the midst of that, that's where God is. It's not in flight from it or fixing it. There's nothing like sitting with a hospice patient to realize you can't fix it.
Yeah.
And so that you sit there with people and realize that God is in the midst of that moment, that presence itself, rather than in what I can do.
So the reason I think we come back to Ignatius on that bed recovering from the injury is because something powerful was happening within him. Your cannonball moment. When you think of Ignatius and you look for parallels, are you aware of transformations in your own life where things were breaking away and happening, and that's a source of your own insight and inspiration and strength?
I would say that kind of my vocation story, it's not so much a cannonball moment as it is a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of moment.
Yeah.
But it has that sense
Painful
of conversion.
Nonetheless, though. Huh?
Painful nonetheless. Absolutely. All conversions have that element of
Yes.
difficulty and grief and loss. But teaching here for 6 years, and in the midst of that, befriending the Jesuit community and teaching theology and having great colleagues and friends here, that very slowly, I started realizing this might be a thing that isn't on accident. That this might be a vocation.
All of that consolation, all of that joy.
Absolutely. Kept research. Every year I would write down New Year's resolutions and seal them in an envelope, and then the next year grade myself on how I did.
Wow.
Classic teacher moment, right? And every year it said something about vocation, and I was like, this is not going away. So ultimately I decided to leave SLUH High, which was a very, very difficult decision.
So there's some of the suffering there.
Absolutely.
Leaving something that was joyful and fulfilling.
Absolutely. But this thing that said maybe there's something greater. Maybe there's a way I could be more engaged with who I am, a better version of myself, a better version of who God wants me to be, and of greater service to the church and God's people. As good as this was, and it was amazing, and it's amazing again to be back. But to realize I needed to leave that behind, a life of expectations and plans, and as the Dan Schutte song Plans and Schemes says, to leave that behind, to say that there's something new. A student of mine at Regis University said on a Kairos talk that God is not a duplicator, God is a creator. And so if we're looking for just photocopies of all of our same experiences, we are not looking for the Christian God.
Yeah.
We're looking for a God who creates out of nothing, who even brings life out of death.
Yeah.
So, and it took a long time, I'll be honest with you, Jim, that it took me 3 or 4 years in the Society of Jesus before I started feeling like this was me.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
Absolutely.
I would have thought there would have been immediate confirmation and clarity, but no.
No, I thought entering the Society of Jesus would make me happy, and it didn't. I had this preconceived notion of what the society was supposed to do, that we don't follow our vocation because it makes us happy. We follow our vocation because God invites us to it. And there's something way, way bigger than happiness, and it's fulfillment and joy, that you do have to go through those dark moments. You have to lay on that bed like Ignatius did for all those months and have pieces of your bones sawed off so you look better in public. And just all these mistakes you make in the journey to totally become who you are. I was so worried about the thing I was supposed to be. instead of focusing on the person God was forming me.
Right. We know Ignatius was an ambitious guy. We know he was a talented guy. We know he was a person probably pursuing a vision that he powerfully had. And you are in your own way. The problem with that is that there come these letting go moments where our idea and our vision and Jerusalem or whatever it might be that we thought we had to have and that God wanted for us turns out not to be what we have to cooperate with. That is not easy.
No, it is not. And I think it's why that La Storta moment for Ignatius, where he's traveling to Rome, and he stops in this little chapel, and God reveals himself, and he says, I will be propitious to you in Rome.
Yeah.
Ignatius thought it would be one place, and God says, no, it's here is where I need you to be. Ignatius talks about frequently in discernment, we sort of have a desire and grab God and drag him along, and God's happy to go, as it turns out. But what if we said to God, what is it you have dreamed up for me? And what if I went along with you? There's also this sense of when you embrace a new thing, you don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember the first time I started singing, I was like, I wasn't very good. I'd never done it before. The first time I played racquetball, I wasn't very good at it. I've become better at hearing confessions and saying Mass because I do it more. And by my third year in first study, so my fifth year as a Jesuit, I was finally like, I have some skills here that I can use.
I've done the reps.
Yeah, I've done the reps, exactly.
Yeah, and people, I think, forget how important the reps are.
Absolutely.
They think charism, they think gift, they think vocation, but they don't think reps.
Well, Ignatius himself, even when he got to Rome, he thought, oh, I'm going to go out and do all this stuff. And he sat at a desk most of his life, the rest of his life, writing letters and writing the constitutions. He wanted to go to the missions. He wanted to go out and do this work. So there's this sense of, what is it I want, but where are my gifts and talents, my limits, best able to serve God and the church?
Which brings me back to the turn that brought you back to us. But the path to get here probably had a few twists and turns.
I was able to go on SLUH's Kairos retreat last November. And it was on that retreat, as I was praying, I was in the midst of a discernment with the provincial about what to do next year. And being on that retreat was just God shouting as clearly as he possibly could, why are you confused about what to do? Look how much life this gives you. Working with students is just so incredibly, as you would know, life-giving and fulfilling and joy-inducing, really. And then I went and told the provincial, and he's like, Matt, you should, if there was a video and you watch yourself talking about these other options, you would see yourself light up as soon as you said the word high school. He's like, so you're going to a high school. Now, where was still up in the air.
Right.
And it turns out he gave me a few options. All were really good. I felt really good about. And I said to him, what's most important to me is I go where there's a need. And he said, well, then it's going to be SLUH. St. Lucie High has this great need with fewer Jesuits here and with great things that we're doing that we need people and we need somebody with energy and that ability. So to make all that happen was just, it's providence. It's got to be.
So it was not you saying, oh, someday and I'll talk to this person and perhaps the road will bend me.
Oh, no.
I would have. Was it?
No, first of all, I'm a terrible liar, so I would have given up my plan to somebody at some point and been caught. The old Jesuit thing about better to ask forgiveness than permission, I have found not to be true. Always better to ask permission. But no, there was no maneuvering or anything like that. In fact, I was shocked when he finally said St. Lucie High is the place, because I sort of thought, much to the opposite of dreaming to be here, I thought it was never going to be a possibility because I had spent so much time here already.
So it's just it's wonderful to know that Ignatius' spirit is alive.
And I think that sometimes the cannonball is required to take that silence. That there's something that has to be taken away.
Something disruptive.
Something that has to disrupt. Like we talk about the cannonball moment, it's like this was literally painful in his legs and very painful in his heart. And soul, that his whole life he had imagined was gone.
Right.
And then what does he do? He moves into something different.
Well, Father Stewart, thanks for giving us a few minutes here on Insignis and for this video broadcast. We're grateful.
My pleasure.
Have a wonderful day and welcome back to St. Lucie High.
Thanks very much, Mr. Linares. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.